Welcome to this special episode of the Conservative Coalition where we have a nice interview with Anonymous. I'm here with Cody. Cody, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. Had to take a little hiatus for some home issues. We'll leave it at that. But I'm back in the saddle, ready for some action. So it's glad to be back and see you all still here, waiting for us to spread the good word.
Speaking of that, I encourage everyone to like, share, and subscribe our videos and follow us on Twitter. We need to get the word out there and grow. We want to create a lot more content for you, and the only way is through your help. We have a Patreon account where you can donate money, and if you do, we need to establish some special tiers and rewards for our patrons, maybe even to have you on the show. So I think for our first ever patron, even if it's $1, it's a free invite to the show. What do you think, Cody?
Sounds like a plan to me.
So who's going to be that first person? Can it be you? Oh, Cody, you cannot donate $1 and be the first patron.
Darn. I'm slowly planning on doing that.
So let's dive into what Anonymous is, because they're really famous for hacking and all the stuff they did in that realm. If you remember a few years ago, Xbox One and PlayStation Network was hacked and nobody could sign into their consoles on Christmas Day, and it was a disaster for kids anywhere. This was done by a hacking group called Lizard Squad. Then I think a day later, if I remember the timing, Anonymous jumped in and attacked Lizard Squad, and kids were able to enjoy their games again. And they pretty much saved the Christmas break.
And for those of you who are a little more technical savvy, they DDoSed this group and pretty much went in and wiped out their servers. So deleting all of the information that they had and kind of taking back what they had stolen.
That's right. So let me do a quick intro to Anonymous in case you're not familiar. Anonymous is a talented humanitarian activist organization. They aim to fight corruption on either side of the aisle. They have been producing a lot of content in the form of political satire graphics against globalists and Justin Trudeau. They have also created a lot of pro-Trump graphics. Anonymous can be found online at anonofficial.com or simply by searching for Anonymous in your desired search engine. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of their work and learn more about Anonymous. Before I get into the questions, it's going to involve topics such as globalism, leftist politics, the far super left, and I need to prepare myself mentally. So I'm going to have some leftist tears. Boy, that was refreshing. Anon, welcome to the show. Glad to have you. Please tell us about yourself and what you are currently doing and where you're located.
Thank you for having us on your show. We are many people that expose some of the corruption that feeds off humanity's back. Located somewhere in Ontario, Canada, we already have a good vibe of all the changes taking over.
So with that being said, what exactly do you guys do as an organization? And how do you get a lot of your information? Because some of the stuff that you guys put out there is it's pretty hard to come by. It's not something you just Google up. So I'd be curious to see what you guys do for that.
We are anonymous, humanitarians, truth seekers, hackers. We are you, and we expose corruption of all kinds. Sometimes we are asked from others to step in and help present scenarios that have gone to the wayside. For instance, Retta Parsons. Please check that story out. I am pretty sure it's all over the internet. It was a success. It will never bring back Heather, but it brought some justice, allowing Heather Parsons to rest in peace. I believe USA had a similar situation in Ohio. A football team sexually assaulted a young lady. Anyway, Yes, we step forth to help Heather's parents and her family and friends to know they are never alone. We hope to wake people around the world in what is the truth behind our government's agenda. The information we see comes from the internet, such as viewed videos, texts and direct comments from Ottawa Parliament and various other anons. Yes, like Q. We never get our information from mainstream media, of course. Sadly, such venues as CNN, CBC and other news sites are infiltrated by the UN's agenda. Basically fabricated, inflamed for the purpose of the New World Order to step in and dictate your lives. Many of our contacts are insiders that are willing to tell us of upcoming events and or some of the scandals from where they are affiliated. There is good news, real news, and we in Canada believe your POTUS is on the right track.
What is your political ideology? Do you consider yourself a libertarian, liberal, conservative? And does it really reflect Anonymous as a whole?
As Anonymous, we have no political affiliation or preference. Their system is based on having people pay to be on this beautiful planet, to make people believe the system is the only way life here works. We have no preference in any politics, as we believe the system is not made to help people but to enslave them, to bring their personal agenda only. We hope for the sake of this beautiful country, Canada, that the masses awaken soon, before it is too late. Trudeau is destroying our country with his stupidity. He is merely a puppet to the UN. Our ideology is to respect all life in this beautiful planet, to help others.
Does Anonymous share your political stance as a whole, as a whole organization? Do you guys agree to one side or the other, or do you see a good mix of left, right, and independence in your organization? And how does that affect you guys?
As a whole in Canada, we all feel the same way and also work together. Personally, today my part is to represent the idea with my graphics, that the system is not working for the people, a stance worth doing. It's similar to dropping red pills and allowing people to make their own minds by researching.
Anonymous, what does globalism mean to you?
System of ideas to better control people and rules that will serve the economics, elite politicians, that bought into the UN's agenda, Illuminati at its finest. The world's marketing, banking, trades, that will make all citizens, good slave. Globalism is to have the people feeding the world's money machine, to enslave us and to feed the greed of the rich, less human organizations.
So what do you think about President Trump then?
Trump is the one that started exposing the corruption in the U.S. For years we have tried to do the same, but because it's not on CBC, CNN breaking news, people just wouldn't believe it. Imagine a leader that caught the FBI in major cover-ups, the Clintons' treason, pedophile rings, human trafficking, Obama's fooling Americans, and the thousands of indictments. It is a good start for a president or for any other country's leaders to do. Working for the people if Trump can follow through in draining the swamp as planned. Pulling out of the UN means he knows their agenda. Coming from Canada, this is what we see. The destruction of an old deranged system and the start of a better one. Let's wait and see, the future will tell us a lot more. Imagine if Hillary were to have been in power? Imagine? We do not want to think about it, it did not happen, simply.
Think about how Canada was when you were a child versus now. How has globalism affected you and changed Canada?
In my case it would be going way back, but let's say just since the 80s, I see division, labeling, the loss of free speech and cultures that does not represent Canadians nor Canada. 2018 in Canada is the first time in history we noticed terrorism so many times under the Liberal Party. Apparently we are not allowed to mention it either, then we become the terrorists.
So, with all of that in mind, do you guys have any idea how Justin Trudeau even got into office? And how do you think he's ruined Canada, if he is at all? And are Canadians having regret on electing him in the first place?
Justin Trudeau has allowed ISIS members, extremists, criminals and some very unhappy people to call Canada their new home, by a minimum of 300 to 600 per day. This is all taken care of by the taxpayers, as homelessness, Poverty is the Canadians' new life. Promoting women's rights, gender equality, only Trudeau's equality propaganda, more than anything else, and also push some laws that would make all this a crime, better known as M103. Passing new laws like certain act of bestiality, age of consent from 18, 16 down to 14, 12, created sex ed curriculum for 6th graders to make refugees feel more welcomed in Canada. We do believe California has the same idea as Trudeau, promoting the same craziness. He even paid $10.5 million to one terrorist for his so-called torture while in jail. The terrorist murdered an American soldier and injured another. Trudeau paid him proudly for his suffering in jail. Also, $33 million to 3 other terrorists. Taking vacations off our taxes, gifts to his friends at Bahamas Pato Island, all while the Canadians' economy falls. The best was his payment to the Clinton Foundation, shortly after he won the majority vote here in Canada. Trudeau's demands to Canadians is to have tolerance, be supportive, face terrorist attacks, as our rights are now been criminalized, to replace our laws to appease the new Canadian migrants.
After Trump became president, illegal immigration to Canada has skyrocketed, and Justin Trudeau recently blamed the United States for it. Is it wrong to protect our borders? Why can't Canada protect theirs?
The problem is not Canada but Justin Trudeau on the border crossings for his upcoming 2019 election fraud cover-up. Trudeau has blamed the Canadian Conservatives for the past 3 years for every single crime Trudeau partakes in. Video feeds show Trudeau defending the border crossing, building a nice shelter for all the newcomers crossing. The Come to Canada is Trudeau's new Canadian agenda. He will pay you the big bucks to come here too. Just vote for the guy. Defending terror attacks and calling them small incidents. Please know that Canadians have nothing to do with Trudeau's actions. Outright Trudeau is an embarrassment to most Canadians. Sadly, the ones that love him are either bots or paid off. Trudeau's reason for all this is to have newcomers vote for him at the next federal election. Trudeau's idea is to empty Syria of its citizens, making them refugees by force. Then Iran and Israel get their oil through the commercialization of those old countries to serve what was originally planned. Know that more of those very angry people are now here in Canada. The skill is to outweigh old stock Canadians at the next election. Most of us know Trudeau is at fault, not Trump. The media will not tell you or me any of this.
According to Reuters, about 20,000 illegal immigrants have already jumped the U.S. borders into just Canada alone. Illegal immigration has caused a negative effect in Canada, similar to the way it has in the United States. And they're straining their resources. They can't afford to feed, shelter, or care for their own citizens. Schools are starting to get overcrowded. Jobs are not as common as they used to be. What are you guys' thoughts on this? Like, what is your take on what's going on with the illegal immigration right now?
True, the sad part of this is just scratching the surface of the repercussions Canadians are being submitted to. Our culture, beliefs, ways of life that were carved out with hands and sweat, in other words our pride, has been censored, as it offends the ones that Trudeau states we must welcome. This is treason. Crimes to humanity, crimes that a Prime Minister seems to continue to get away with. With what we know now of the past of the USA, Canadians are waking, slowly.
How can Canadians support these far-left policies and still expect to maintain their quality of life and identity?
Those policies are not made to do that. It's more like Canada has been into a bid war and was never told about it. It does feel as if Canada was handed over to the UN's agenda, by making refugees majority. To fix this at this point, it will just have to run its cycle and may turn like Europe, or a third world country. Maybe once Canadians feel the reality of these changes, maybe when these new Canadian standards affect Canadians personally, there will be no other way but to claim Canada back. Maybe the ones that hate Canada so much may have to go back to where they were taken from?
So, along with this illegal immigration into Canada, we've seen a mix of foreign cultures coming in as well. And diversity is good and all, but should countries be allowed to protect their culture and protect their laws as well over those of people who are immigrating to their country. For example, here in America, we saw Sharia law try to get placed in. I mean, we're even seeing cases where Canadian immigrants didn't even know that it's not okay to beat their wives. They're committing sexual assault. Like, I mean, it might be normal in their country, but it's not in Canada. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this? And do you think we should do anything to change that?
Many Canadians and Anonymous see this as treason. Not only our culture is banned, but we lost our rights of freedom to defend our culture. Anyone trying to expose, talk about or even suggest things that are not right, are now labeled as hate crimes and racists. Even Trudeau's right hand, Gerald Butts, went as far as calling Canadians that does not agree, Nazis. Still today, many refugees don't know about exercising their religious rights while Canadians' culture is a crime. Take the example of Mohammed Rafia, a Syrian refugee, didn't just beat his wife, he beat her with a hockey stick. For half an hour. Now is this discipline or attempt murder? For a refugee it is just a misunderstanding, but for a Canadian this would be attempted murder. Inventing words like people kind or Islamophobia, and trying to make double standards or opposite meanings off of it, depending to whom they present those new words to. Again, the system does not work. In this case it doesn't just not work, it's a scandal, illegal and outright treason.
In European countries, we have seen rises in crime, and the former. Is Canada not aware of the effects of having their country and values being taken over?
Canadians didn't see it coming. There are no mention of it on the news. All they do is make up some lame saving refugee story, and many believe the lies. There are a lot more people aware of this today, but the big question is, are we too late? Canadians are now minority and left voiceless. Our veterans, the ones that fought beside USA, are now not even cared about by Trudeau. Canada needs majority now to overthrow this corrupt government.
Do you think Canadians are starting to wake up to the globalism that's happening in their country, similar to the way that California is, or are they embracing it? Trudeau's approval ratings are now below 50% for the first time since taking office. So how do you think this affects their nation as a whole?
You may find this weird considering the gravity of our government's mismanagement, but most Canadians still don't have a clue. The more people see the video bits of Trudeau, from business to pleasure, his appearance speaks disgrace and shame. Trudeau's approval is very low today. It is, thanks to shows like yours. If it's not out there, you make it and share to the public, with the hopes that people will look for more. Sadly, many Canadians are ignoring it. Politics were never really cared about. Seemed we had governments, all in the same light, but were not completely blatantly criminal as it is today.
Is there a good alternative to Trudeau for office, or do you think Canada's going to have a hard time finding a replacement?
Replacement is the same as the elections everywhere else. We get a group of people that comes with ideas and promises. Over the past we all know it has big flaws and the citizens are the ones paying for it. But ones leading towards humanity, justice and fairness are where it holds a promise the most. Changes are done in small steps. If the people get stronger, then they will have a government that will work for them this time. Such as the USA has today. There is hope.
So just as an interesting thought on all of this, given what we've talked about so far, we've obviously seen a downward spiral with Canada. Economically, socially, crime rates have gone up, and their government is in this mindset. Do you think that Canada may actually see a reform headed back in the direction of capitalism, or do you think it's going to stay with the current trends?
No, it will be very different than capitalism. Government will still make you think you are free to own everything money can buy. Even if your debts become a rock on the back of generation to come. They will make you dream. The only thing they haven't taxed yet, or maybe they have refused to pay it? Control, restrictions on a diversity that was masked as division. We will see more crimes, thefts, killings more meaningless than ever. Like all problems to be solved, it will get worse before it gets better. Yet we are in need of more people to be aware of what is behind the puppets of all governments that bought into the UN, like the Queen of England and the King of Saudi. who happened to be the head of the UN. It is the same old one they keep trying to push on the world. Imagine that, the New World Order. A big vicious circle.
So I just wanted to thank you very much for coming onto our show and talking to us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I know that you guys don't do interviews that often, especially with a politically affiliated group such as ourselves. So yet again, I just want to say thank you for reaching out to us, and I hope you guys continue to do good work, and I hope you guys continue to maintain in the public eye. So yeah, thank you very much for coming onto the show and being a part of the Conservative Coalition.
Yep, and thank you very much again, and I hope we can do many more videos together. You have a great insight into what's going on in this world.